Welcome back. Some have called the Korean conflict the Forgotten War.
60 years ago, North Korea invaded South Korea, setting off a chain of events that became known as the Korean War.
As Staff Sergeant Brian Buckwalter reports, when servicemen weren't fighting, they were helping many of Korea's youngest generation.
Amidst the combat,
that was one of the most horrific wars in our history.
The raids,
the amount of destruction.
The battles.
Armies went south, north in a small peninsula 4 times, wiping out everything in their way.
Were victims of the war, not soldiers, but children.
In a war situation, kids get lost, family break up. Everybody is out for his own salvation.
Estimates were there were over 100,000 children that were made homeless by the war.
Because of the poverty during that time, Korean adults couldn't help out their own. Link White witnessed it through his 9-year-old eyes.
What I saw were mostly homeless, the homeless. And it was really pathetic, absolutely pathetic. And there's nothing I could do because I myself had nowhere to go.
Link was born in North Korea not long after World War II. When the Americans came to his city as a young boy, he had a job opportunity with the Army, working in a mess hall. It was cut short when the Chinese forces invaded the city. Link was invited along with the U.S. Army during their retreat, and after seeking permission from his father, he went.
It was very sad for me to leave. But I remember my father telling me that a powerful America is not going to let the Chinese kick him around. After they reinforce, you'll be home in 10 days.
That was 60 years ago. He's never been back to his hometown.
Words in about 5.
George Drake is a Korean War veteran. He served there from 1952 to 1953, working in an Army intelligence battalion, listening to Chinese radio chatter. He, like most other servicemen, volunteered to help out with the Korean orphanage his unit sponsored.
For the young men that went over, they had to be trained to aim a gun at another human being and shoot to kill. They didn't have to be trained to solace a crying child, find shelter for the homeless child, food for the hungry child. I mean, that came with being American.
He was correspondence secretary and was in charge of sending letters out to friends and family back home.
And in the course of the year and 16 months that I was there, we brought in over 12 tons of aid for the orphanage.
Through his research, George estimates there were over 400 orphanages in Korea, up to 95% of them having some soldier involvement.
How can you walk by a kid in a ditch who's dying and not do what you can?
You know, average American soldier, because of his compassionate heart, I don't think can go to sleep at night, having seen all those kids out in the street, freezing and starving. And if they can do something, they will.
Link was more fortunate than many Korean children. After leaving home, he was essentially raised by the Army, moving from job to job. After working in the mess hall, he spent some time as a unit mascot and eventually became a bartender at an NCO club. That's where he met an airman named Albert Truman White. AT promised to bring Link back to the United States. He tutored Link daily, getting him ready for school in the U.S.
He's more than father. He cared. He really cared about my future.
AT adopted Link, who became a U.S. citizen and, eventually, a veteran. He served in Vietnam as an Army public affairs officer. But for a long time, George says stories like Link's and stories of the orphans weren't being told. So, George Drake did. He pieced together military records and newspaper clippings, spending years compiling what he could.
We saved the lives of over 10,000 children. Has that ever been published anywhere? No. We donated over $2 million from our pay of $50 a month during those 3 years to help sustain the orphans. We helped sustain over 54,000 orphans.
His research not only led to telling the story, his efforts led to the creation of the Korean War Children's Memorial in Bellingham, Washington. Link, who has published an autobiography, spoke at the memorial's dedication. Many Korean children's lives were saved through orphanages and the compassion of U.S. soldiers, but many weren't. George Drake is currently working to place a memorial in South Korea dedicated to what he estimates are the 500,000 Korean children who died during the 3 years of the Korean War. A permanent reminder of the victims of the forgotten war. Staff Sergeant Brian Buckwalter, Pentagon Channel News.